Hello, this is Andy's Golf and Travel Diary here at Sunny Hill Resort with Wayne Nicholson, one of the owners of the resort. And how are you today, Wayne?
Great, Andy. Great.
Thanks for having me here. This is
you.
a very, very special place.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
I'll just briefly call it Sunny Hill. I get it. It's in the hills. It's in the northern
Right.
Catskills. It seems like it's always sunny here.
Well, we like to hope it's always sunny here. We've had a couple days with not so much sunshine lately, but yes, generally it's very sunny, especially during the summer months here when we're open.
Well, you've done a lot in the winter here in the Hall of Fame here for snowmobiling.
Right. Yes, I did it for 30 years of my life, and I was very fortunate to have had a great success, and it led eventually to an induction into the Hall of Fame, which I'm extremely proud of. And it wasn't something that I had intended on doing when I raced. I raced because I enjoyed it and it was thrilling. And my business, Sunny Hill, allowed me to be able to have that time to do that sport.
But do you have some time to answer a few more questions?
Of course, of course.
So Wayne, tell me a little bit about that plaque that is behind you there.
That placard is the identical replica to the placard that hangs at the Hall of Fame in St. Germain, Wisconsin. And I was, I believe, the 84th inductee into the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame was started back in mid-1980s, and it's the same as any other major sports Hall of Fame. The competitors have to be judged by their peers. Then casting votes have to be put up in front of board members. After that, there are over 200 sports writers between the U.S. and Canada that say either you're an in or an out. And there are hundreds of names on the ballots. And sooner or later, if you have enough credibility or enough criteria to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, your name gets called, and mine happened to happen about 3 years ago, back in 2011.
Wow, what an achievement, what an honor.
Extremely humbled by it and extremely honored because some of the people that I used to idolize as a kid growing up in racing, I'm now on the same wall as they are.
In golf, we call the Hall of Fame the highest honor. And
Exactly. And I did not do the sport because of that, Andy. I did it because I love the sport and I love the people that were involved in it. And it was just like any other motorsport. It was a very, very high danger, high risk sport.
Tell me a little bit about your sponsor, Skidoo.
My sponsor was a major manufacturer. They're actually one of the only 4 manufacturers left in snowmobiling, and it is Skidoo. It's Bombardier Corporation out of Valcourt, Quebec, Canada. And they were my sponsor for 25 of the 30 years I raced. And I felt very fortunate to be able to have that sponsorship, and I was their only factory Formula 3 driver that survived all 9 years of the factory Formula 3 program back in the late 80s and into the 90s.
Tell me about why you love snowmobiling. What's the thrill for you?
It was just the thrill of being out on a crisp winter's day, and back then I loved the cold weather and loved to be out there and racing around on snow at first, and then of course we transferred over to ice in the early 70s, and it was just an exciting thrill to be able to have a snowmobile that had a lot of horsepower and a lot of acceleration, so to speak. We were racing on sleds that were 400 pounds and had 200 horsepower engines in them. It's quite a head rush.
Tell me about your first moment on a snowmobile. How'd that come to be?
First moment on a sled, actually, my brother Gary's the one that got me interested in it. He had a dealership in the late 1960s, and he put me on a snowmobile back when I was 13 years old. And by the time I was 15, I took my first snowmobile to a race and finished 6th with all the men out of almost 100 drivers that day. And to finish 6th as a kid against all the men driving, I was hooked from that day on.
Wow. Let's talk Sunny Hill. Tell me a story about your mom, May, and your father, Albert, the founders.
Right. Mom and Dad were very special people. Just like generations before them, our grandparents worked extremely hard to build this into a modern working resort. At the time when we were growing up, we witnessed that. Dad would always have a plan to build a different building on this property as each year went on. So back during the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, as kids growing up, we used to see all these different buildings popping up at Sunny Hill. And we would always be part of the crew, so to speak, that would go around and clean up behind the carpenters every night when they were building these new buildings and structures. And as the years went on, we just continued to maintain it. And then we started to build a thing called the golf course, which happened in the late 60s, and that became fascinating. And from that point on, then golf was in, and Dad decided that he wanted to have the first 18-hole golf course accompanied with a resort in the northern Catskills. And in 1989, that became a reality when we opened up the back nine on the Sunny Hill course. And then some 20 some odd years later, when we acquired Thunderheart, which was back in 2005, 2006, then we were the only family-operated resort in the state of New York with two 18-hole golf courses, which we're extremely proud of.
Wow. I just got back from a visit with my sister Chris, who married a dairy farmer. And he and his brother and two sisters live on the same road, Marsh Road, within a mile of each other.
Okay.
What is it like to be running this business with your sister Gail and your brother Gary?
That's exactly why this works, because the three of us grew up in the business together. Gary was always kind of the father figure to Gail and I. Gail's always been unbelievable at her job in keeping the office operations. Gary's always overseen the whole operation of the business, so to speak. He's the head bean counter, and he makes sure that everybody's having a great time at Sunny Hill. And I have really been put in charge of making sure that all of the activities that take place here at Sunny Hill, whether it be our Just for Fun rides or our tournaments that take place, make sure that that's operational, because I gave up my reins to my nephew 14 years ago, Eric, and he's now in charge of all the grounds and the operations of superintendent of both golf courses.
Great. Now, I've spoken with a lot of the guests, and I've gotten their stories of why they come back year after year to Sunny Hill. But from your perspective, what are the top three reasons for your guests to come back here year after year?
I think the number one reason is that we always make them feel like family, and that in itself, when they come back, they're like an extended family of ours, and just like they look forward to seeing us, we look just as forward to seeing them come back year after year. The other thing, to watch the kids grow up from the time they're youngsters, and when I sit there and tell some of the youngsters that I knew their great-grandparents, they tell me that's impossible. You're not old enough to know my great-grandparents. I said, I know your great-grandparents because I used to help my dad when I was your age running tournaments when your great-grandparents came here to Sunny Hill. And the other thing is the fact that they are no different now than they were when I grew up as a kid over 60 years ago. These kids can pretty much, from the time they're 5 or 6 years old, have the run of this place. They can go here, go there, feel safe, not have to worry about, so many people leave their doors open to their rooms. I still go to sleep at night at my house and leave the doors open to the house and leave the keys in my vehicles. There's not many places in the world that you can say that you can do that anymore. So it's the fact of them having a lot of freedom here too.
It does remind me of growing up in Binghamton, playing at Rec Park, and just be home for dinner, and when that bell rings, that's when all the kids appear and come back.
Exactly.
And to the newcomer, I had dinner with a young couple in love, and their families didn't make it this year, but they came because they loved it so much. But what would you say to the newcomer out there that is looking for a place to go on vacation?
The newcomer that wants to come, we still offer certain packages on weekends where I think they may feel more at home. We have golf weekends where we're not so much geared around the families with the little ones running around, but there's still young couples that come even during the summer when we have families here with extended children, because they they still feel just as much at place as anyone else does.
Awesome. Well, Wayne, thank you so much for having me and being part of Andy's Golf and Travel Diary. It was really, I grew up 2.5 hours from here, and I didn't know Paradise was so close.
You know upstate New York, and it's totally different than when everybody says New York City. Totally different. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.